I trusted him with everything, my secrets, my dreams, even the girl I thought I'd marry. But I never saw it coming until the day they both took everything from me. You ever have those moments that seem so normal, so safe, that you never imagine they could be the calm before a storm? That's exactly what that day was. Just another ordinary day, or so I thought. It was a Friday morning. I remember because I was rushing out the door late as usual. My girlfriend, Mia, stood in the kitchen, sipping coffee, wearing one of my old t-shirts. She smiled when I walked in, teasing me about forgetting my keys again. "You'd lose your head if it wasn't screwed on," she laughed, tossing them to me. And then there was Ryan, my best friend since high school. We worked at the same company, rode together sometimes, grabbed beers every weekend. He was more like a brother than a friend. We had gone through everything together, bad breakups, college failures, even my mom's funeral. He was always there. That morning he picked me up like usual. Same old playlist, same dumb jokes, same energy. We talked about this new project coming up at work, one I was really excited for. I'd spent months preparing for it. It was finally my shot to lead something big, and Ryan was hyping me up like he always did. "You've got this, man," he said. "No one deserves it more." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? The day passed like any other. Meetings, emails, lunch with Ryan and a few coworkers. I texted Mia around noon, told her I'd be late. She sent back a heart emoji. Nothing strange, nothing suspicious. Looking back, I try to remember if there was any sign, some shift in their expressions, something off in their voices, but there was nothing. Everything felt normal, almost too normal. That evening I got home late. Mia was already asleep on the couch, a movie still playing on the TV. I kissed her forehead, whispered, "I love you," and headed to the shower. At that point my world was still whole. My trust was still unbroken. My life, though simple, felt secure. I had no idea how quickly that would change. It started with small things, so small I almost brushed them off. The next morning Mia was quiet. Not angry, not distant, just distracted. She said she didn't sleep well, that she had a headache. I believed her. I kissed her on the cheek and left for work, figuring it was nothing. But the silence started to stretch. The texts during the day became shorter, fewer hearts, fewer smiley faces. Calls went unanswered with, "Sorry, I was busy." I told myself I was overthinking it. Relationships have ups and downs. She was probably just stressed. At work, Ryan was still the same, loud, funny, always up for lunch. But even then, there were moments. One day I caught him staring at his phone and smiling, then quickly putting it away when I walked into the break room. Another time, I mentioned Mia's birthday coming up, and he looked surprised, like he'd forgotten, even though I'd talked about it weeks before. It wasn't enough to accuse anyone of anything, just weird moments that didn't add up. Then came the night Mia said she needed space. We were sitting on the couch. I had just finished telling her about a big presentation I'd nailed that day. She nodded, barely listening, eyes fixed on her phone. Then she looked up and said, "I think I need some time to figure things out." I froze. "Figure what out?" I asked, my voice catching. "Us everything. I don't know, I just feel lost." I didn't get angry. I didn't beg. I just stared at her, trying to understand what was happening. That night I barely slept. I lay in bed alone while she stayed on the couch, her back to me, a wall of silence between us. I tried to tell myself it was just a phase, a rough patch, that we'd talk it through. But something deeper had already shifted, something I couldn't see but could feel in my gut. And the worst part, the man I would normally turn to, my best friend, was suddenly the last person I wanted to talk to. I don't think anything truly prepares you for betrayal, not when it comes from the people you trust most. It was a Thursday night, a regular, boring evening. Mia had told me she was going to her sister's for a few days. "I need time," she said again, her eyes avoiding mine. I offered to drive her, but she insisted she'd call a ride. I stayed home that night, pacing the living room. I was torn between giving her space and confronting her. My mind kept looping through every conversation we'd had lately, searching for some clue, something I missed. That's when I realized I had left my tablet in her bag. She took it sometimes to watch movies when she traveled. I figured she wouldn't mind if I swung by her sister's and grabbed it. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just drove. It was raining when I pulled up to her sister's building, only she wasn't there. Her sister opened the door, looking confused. "Mia, she's not staying here," she said. "She told me she was with you." My heart dropped into my stomach. Something took over me then, not anger, not panic, just a numb sense of urgency. I called her phone. No answer. I sat in the car, engine running, mind racing, and one name came to me before I could even stop it. Ryan. I drove straight to his apartment. His car was outside. Lights were on. I walked up the steps like a man possessed. Part of me hoped, prayed I was wrong. That there was a simple explanation, that the weird texts, the distance, the coldness, all of it could be something else. But then I knocked, the door opened. And there they were. Mia in one of Ryan's hoodies, her hair wet like she'd just showered, standing beside him, both of them frozen. I didn't say a word, I just looked at them, at her guilty eyes, at his wide, speechless stare. The silence said everything. I turned around and walked away. The rain mixed with the tears I didn't want to admit were there. My chest felt like it was caving in. They didn't just betray me. They shattered something I didn't even know was breakable. I thought walking away from that apartment would be the hardest part. I thought I'd hit the bottom of whatever hole I'd been thrown into. I was wrong. The next day I showed up at work like a ghost. I hadn't slept. My thoughts were heavy, slow, like dragging chains through my skull, but I forced myself to go in. If nothing else, work was all I had left. I avoided Ryan's office. Just seeing his nameplate made my stomach twist. The idea of confronting him, of even looking at him, made my hands shake. I figured I'd keep my head down and get through the day, one meeting at a time. But something felt off. People were whispering around me. I caught the tail end of strange conversations that stopped when I walked by. I told myself I was paranoid, that it was just in my head. Until I got the email. Meeting with HR, 2:00 p.m. urgent. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was about the project I'd been leading. Maybe something changed. But when I stepped into that office, I knew something was wrong. They didn't even let me sit before they got to the point. There have been some concerns raised about your recent performance and conduct, the HR manager said. Her voice was polite, rehearsed, like she'd done this 100 times before. What? I asked. What concerns? They handed me a folder. Inside were emails, screenshots, notes, all pointing to a narrative I didn't recognize, claims of inappropriate behavior, poor leadership, missed deadlines. None of it true, not one word. And at the bottom of the complaint, filed by Ryan, the man I had once called my brother. I couldn't breathe. I tried to argue, to explain, but the decision had already been made. We're letting you go, effective immediately. They didn't even let me clean out my desk. I walked out of that building carrying nothing but my coat and a head full of shame. In less than 48 hours, I'd lost my girlfriend, my best friend, and my job. I didn't know it then, but this was rock bottom. And it was only just beginning. The days after it all came crashing down felt like a blur, like I was watching my own life from outside my body. I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't return calls, not that many came. Word spread fast, Ryan's version, of course. I was the unstable one, the guy who couldn't handle pressure, the one who lost his grip. People I thought were friends stopped replying. Coworkers vanished like smoke. And Mia, she didn't call, not once. I lay on my couch for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what happened. How someone I loved, how they, two people I would have died for, could slice my life open and walk away like nothing happened. There was this moment, maybe 3 days in, when I caught myself laughing, just a hollow, bitter sound. I'd been watching an old video on my phone, the three of us at a barbecue. Ryan was making fun of my haircut, Mia was laughing, and I had my arm around both of them. The memory felt like a punch to the throat. I threw the phone across the room. I wasn't just sad, I was furious. Anger like I'd never known, burning, blinding. Not just at them, but at myself, for being so blind, for trusting too easily, for handing my life over to people who didn't deserve it. I stopped eating, I stopped shaving, I stopped pretending. For a while I wanted to disappear. Not die, I wasn't suicidal, but I wanted to vanish. Let the world forget I existed. Just fade away into nothing so I wouldn't have to feel the heat of shame or see the smug look I imagined on Ryan's face. But somewhere in that silence, somewhere in the stillness of those miserable nights, I felt something else begin to rise. Not hope, not yet. Just this whisper in the back of my mind. You don't have to stay here. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know what to do with it, but it stuck. And slowly, quietly, the rage started turning into something else. Not escape, but the need to rebuild. Rock bottom isn't loud. It's not screaming or breaking things or some dramatic collapse. It's quiet. It's the silence after everyone stops checking in. The emptiness when you realize no one's coming to save you. That's where I was sitting in that silence, surrounded by the pieces of my old life, trying to figure out what the hell I had left. And then one morning, I did something small. I made my bed. I hadn't done it in weeks. The sheets were a mess, the pillows thrown everywhere. But for some reason that day, I stood up, took a deep breath, and pulled the corners tight. It wasn't about cleanliness. It was about control. It was the one thing I could manage in a world that had slipped out of my hands. That one act led to another. I shaved, took a shower, cleaned the dishes, and by the end of the day I felt not better but awake, like maybe I hadn't disappeared completely. I still didn't know what was next. The job market felt impossible. My confidence was shot. Every time I opened a resume file, I'd hear Ryan's voice in my head saying I wasn't leadership material, saying I cracked under pressure. But one night while scrolling through job boards, I saw a free ad for an online course, web design. I had no background in it, didn't even think it was me, but I clicked it anyway. I figured I had nothing to lose. The first lesson was simple, just HTML basics, but something about it lit a spark in me. It was like learning a new language, one that didn't come with lies or fake smiles, just logic, clarity, progress. I started setting a routine. Wake up, learn, practice, apply, repeat. No applause, no big breakthroughs, just quiet work in a room no one visited. But every night, I'd close my laptop and feel something I hadn't felt in weeks. Pride. It was small, fragile, but it was mine. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I started to believe. Maybe I didn't need them to come back. Maybe I could build something better without them. There's something powerful about progress, about seeing even the smallest proof that you're not stuck anymore. Weeks passed. I kept learning, grinding through course after course. I'd wake up early, sometimes before the sun, just to get a few hours of coding in. What started as a distraction turned into obsession. I was building websites by the end of the second month. Ugly ones, sure, but they worked. And every time I hit publish, I felt a little less like the guy who got left behind. I got my first freelance client through a forum post, some small business owner who needed a basic site for her jewelry shop. The pay was barely enough to cover a week of groceries, but when I saw that PayPal notification, I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. I took that money and bought myself a better headset, a small investment, a signal to myself that I wasn't going back. With every new project, I got better, faster, sharper. I started watching videos on branding, UX design, digital marketing. I didn't just want to survive anymore. I wanted to win. And somewhere in the background of that fire was him, Ryan. I won't lie, he was still in my head. I imagined him at the office, sitting at my old desk, probably telling the same jokes I used to tell, wearing that smug grin. I imagined him thinking I was finished, that he'd broken me. And maybe that was true for a while. But the more I grew, the more that image didn't scare me anymore. It motivated me. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted him to watch. To watch me succeed in a way he never could. To watch me rise from the wreckage he left behind, without shortcuts, without lies, without betrayal. I didn't want his job back. I wanted something bigger. Something that couldn't be stolen. Success isn't just about what you build outside. It's about what you rebuild inside. As the projects piled up, I noticed something shifting beneath the surface. It wasn't just my skills or my bank account. It was me. For so long, I defined myself by my job title, my relationship, my place in the world. When all of that was taken, I thought I'd lost me. But I was wrong. I started reading books about resilience, about mindset. I journaled, something I never thought I'd do, but it helped me sort the mess inside. Every night, I'd write about what I was grateful for, what I'd accomplished that day, what I wanted to do better tomorrow. It wasn't easy. Some days, the old wounds still bled fresh. Some nights, loneliness pressed in so tight I could barely breathe. But each morning, I showed up again. Slowly, I became proud. not just of my work, but of who I was becoming. I learned to set boundaries with people who didn't support me. I stopped seeking approval from those who had already let me down. I surrounded myself with new friends, people who believed in progress, not perfection. Mia and Ryan, they became ghosts of a past I was finally ready to leave behind. I realized that success without peace of mind is empty, and peace of mind comes when you stop running from your pain and start using it to fuel your growth. That fire inside me wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was enough, that I deserved better, that I was more than the sum of my mistakes and betrayals. I was becoming a man who didn't just survive storms. I was becoming the man who weathered them and came out stronger. Months of grinding, learning, and rebuilding led to this moment, the opportunity I never thought would come. I got an email from a local startup looking for someone to redesign their entire website. It was a big project, with a tight deadline and a decent budget, enough to finally quit freelancing small gigs and focus full-time. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the screen, heart pounding. This was it, my chance to prove not just to Ryan or Mia, but to myself, that I could build something real. I threw everything I had into that project. Late nights, early mornings, constant tweaks. Every pixel mattered. Every word had to feel right. I wasn't just designing a website, I was crafting a statement. When I sent the final draft, I held my breath. The response came back fast. They loved it. Better than loved. It was exactly what they needed. The contract was renewed. Referrals followed. My business started growing faster than I ever expected. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a local tech meetup. I stood on stage, sharing my story, not the messy details, but the lessons. The pain, the loss, the grit it took to get back up. And in the crowd, I saw a familiar face. Ryan's. He didn't recognize me at first, but when our eyes met, I could see the shock, the realization. I wasn't broken. I was thriving. Not because I wanted to rub it in, but because I had earned it. Because I fought through the darkest parts of myself and refused to stay down. That moment, the one where I looked him in the eye and felt no fear, was worth every sleepless night, every tear, every doubt. I wasn't the same man he tried to break. I was better. Standing on that stage, I realized something I hadn't seen before. Success isn't about stealing back what was taken. It's not about revenge or proving others wrong. It's about owning your story, every messy, painful chapter, and deciding what comes next. Ryan stole my girlfriend. He stole my job. For a while, it felt like he stole my life. But he didn't steal my future. Because the future belongs to me. I learned to stop looking backward, to stop measuring myself by the people who hurt me. I'm not defined by their choices or their betrayals. I'm defined by how I respond. By the courage it took to rebuild from scratch. By the fire inside me that refused to die. Today, I run my own business. I work with clients who respect me. I'm building a life on my terms, one that feels real and honest. And Mia and Ryan, they're memories now, lessons, not anchors. When I see them in my mind, it's not pain I feel. It's gratitude. Gratitude that their betrayal forced me to grow. To fight. To become someone I'm proud of. I made him watch me succeed, not out of spite, but because I refused to let him have the last word. And that's a victory no one can take away.